here. Now, number one, we take an approach here, and the thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is not going the same route that you've always gone, right? 10%, only 10% of people succeed with their New Year's resolutions, only 10%. 6 months in, 60 to 70% fall off. Those are the real statistics. You guys might have heard a lot of different things. Now, the reason why is because the approach is the wrong approach. Usually it's a diet approach. Now, first of all, raise your hand here if in your mind you started this year saying, I'm going to go on a diet. Be honest with me. Just one. Okay. I strongly doubt that that's true. So we got to break diets because that's bullshit. But see, that's the thing though. The kicker is that most people will jump on and say, hey, look, I'm going to diet. I'm going to reach my goals, and that's that. Okay. Now remember, a diet is something that you go on and you go off. We're talking about lifestyle nutrition habits. We're talking about, can you look down the line and say, hey, like this is a part of who I am. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's the approach that we take with everything. Because if you do something, for instance, this is a 6-week challenge, right? It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst, right? It kind of gives you the kind of the bump and the motivation, but that doesn't mean that it's going to keep going. Because the kicker is, what can you continue to do? What becomes a part of your life? Right? I always say, it's not what you do, it's who you become, right? Now, the first thing, because part of the presentation is the science of goal setting. You know, when somebody asked me yesterday, I thought it was a nutrition seminar. Absolutely, it's a nutrition seminar. Now, would you say that goal setting and mindset and belief systems have a lot to do with whether you succeed with nutrition or not? Yes. Absolutely. I would say it's almost more important. I'll show you how. All right, let's do this. All right, raise your hand if one of your goals is getting leaner, losing some weight. All right, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do a little test, right? We're gonna do a little test here. You tell me if a food is good or bad. Now, good or bad means good, it's in line with reaching your goals, and bad, if you ate that consistently, it'll take you away from your goals. All right, we'll do that drill? Cool. All right, broccoli. Good. Right, lean ground beef. Good. Fish. Good. Awesome. Let's Brussels sprouts. Good. Spinach. Good. Awesome. Cookies. Bad. Pizza. Bad. I know some people are questioning it. Some people are questioning this shit. Thought this is good, it's good, it's good. All right. Now, okay, but here's the thing. So right now, listen, you guys know what you're doing. You can go home. We're good. See what I mean? So would you say that you know the next step? Not all the steps. Would you say that you know certain things that you need to do to get ahead? Yes. Absolutely, right? So that means that knowledge is not the key factor here, at least not the next step, okay? And what I like to say is, like, people right now are drowning in information and searching for transformation, right? And there's a 3-step process: information, integration, transformation, right? How do we make it happen? So that was the reason that, number one, we've been doing this for almost 11 years, 13 years if I count our gym in Slovenia. Just here, over 2,600 client success stories. So we know what we're doing, but the main thing is that we started seeing patterns and then started diving into the psychology of weight loss, fat loss, transformation, okay? And what we found is there's a lot of other things that are involved with change, okay? And number one, this is where, 1 second so I can get back to this one. All right, so number one lesson when it comes to succeeding this year is going to be believing the possibility, okay? Your beliefs shape your reality. Would everybody agree with that? Okay, so what happens has little to do with the stories that we tell ourselves in our head. That's very important to understand, guys, right? And the first thing, if after I get done with this first part, honestly, if you take the lessons from this and apply them, you'll already be a step ahead from where you were last year. Regardless if I give you any type of great information about nutrition, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, the science behind that stuff. This is probably the most important part. So we tend to experience what we expect. Think about this. Our expectations shape what we believe is possible. Our perceptions are actions, which means it shapes our outcome and reality. So if we believe that our goals are out of reach, we're not going to achieve them. Here's a crazy statistic, okay? Millennials set more goals than people that are older. But I'm going to get to a point why, because this is very important, okay? 8 out of 10 millennials set goals, which means that they achieve them more often because they actually set them, they write them out. 7 out of 10 people that are over the age of 60 say setting goals is pointless, right? Now, why would that be? Here's the thing. What happens when you don't achieve a goal? Here's the little loop. Here's the little process that happens when you fail. Okay, first, you got disappointment. Then you have frustration. Then you have anger. Then sadness. And then slowly, as that keeps happening, it turns to cynicism. Okay? When you become cynical, then you start going like, man, forget goal setting. It doesn't work. Right? Now, why is that? Here's the thing. It's hard to get your hopes crashed if you don't set your hopes high. So once it's happened over and over and over again, we just start setting such low goals that we just don't go after them. And then we can't be disappointed. Right? So the thing is that that type of cynicism poisons our soul and literally takes away power and crashes any type of goals that we can achieve. And so that's why I'm covering this today as the first part, because it's that important. And like, this is the part that I'm going to have you take notes and do some actions, because it's going to be like, and the thing is, whether you do them right now or you do them at home, I promise you, do not leave here. Here's the main thing. You're sitting here and going like, all right, now we're going to do goal setting. See, that's already, what is that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know some of you, like, I'm looking at the eyes like, I want a template for food. All right, cool. Listen, we'll talk about that. But the thing is, you could Google a template for food. See, what we do is we help take the information to integration to transformation. And I'll explain a little bit of why and how that works, right? Because the first thing I'm talking about cynicism, you're already cynical. I'm looking at the eyes, right? So the question is, like, what type of changes could you make? What type of adjustments can you make to your thinking so that you can succeed? That's the key. Right? It's perspective, and we're going to touch on a couple of these. Now, anybody know the company Zappos? Yep. Right? I'm sure there's some people buying shoes here, so you know Zappos, right? So Zappos, the guy that started Zappos went to hundreds and hundreds of different venture capital companies and was trying to pitch this. He said, listen, I'm going to sell shoes online, okay? Now, at this point in time, when shoes were still in mail order catalogs, and everybody was like, you're crazy. The mail order catalog does $5 billion a year out of a $40 billion industry, right? And so, but there was one guy, so everybody said, you're crazy. There's no way that's going to work. But then there was one guy, and his name was Tony Shai. And he said, how big is the industry? 40 million. So just a couple percent of that is huge. And I believe the internet is going to go up. So he invested. Right, so he had a different approach to thinking. And then Zappos ended up, getting bought by Amazon for $1.2 billion 10 years later. But there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that looked at it one way, but one person saw it another way. It's a change in thinking. The 4-minute mile. You guys have all heard of the 4-minute mile. They said it was physically impossible for a human being to run a 4-minute mile. After it was ran, what happened? Within the next couple of years, multiple people beat it. Why? Belief. Because they started believing it. Same thing. If I said, you know what, 30 years ago, hey, listen, I'll be able to go from New York to Seattle in 4.5 hours, right? You'd be like, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. It's impossible. So the kicker is, whatever you think that can be done, or you say that can't be done, somebody else is going to go and do that. So if I can do one thing by the time that you leave here tonight, is to make you believe that you can, right? And it sounds so corny and foo-foo, but there's a science behind this, all right? Because here's the second truth, right? We said that your beliefs shape your reality. But the truth number 2 is that some beliefs hold you back. right? Some beliefs literally direct you away from your goals and where you want to go. So I'm going to give you an example of Jenny and Jay. So in the case of Jenny, I'm withholding true names because of, of the culprits in this case, all right? But this is years ago. It was a client that I had. Every time I would talk to them, there was like it was pointing. There was blame. There was almost like this power and, the guilt of like, oh, everybody's doing this to me. The world's shitty. It's all going. And the thing is, it was so draining to even just be around that person, right? That I would leave sessions just like, geez, like I'm exhausted, right? I'm exhausted. Everything was everybody else's fault. And it was almost a acceptance, not just acceptance, but drawing to victim mode, because that was almost the relief, right? Now I got a friend, Jay. Jay's one of my best friends. He's always upbeat, always trying to, and first of all, he wasn't always like that. So this is an important part of the message. But he always uplifts people. He's always nice to other people. He always treats people like they're their top customers or the best friends. And every single time I'm around him, matter of fact, I fly to California all the time just to be around the dude for like 3-4 days. Because he's so energetic, and I leave uplifted, right? So what is the difference? Now, the difference is that one person has a abundance mindset, which would be Jay, and the other person has a fixed mindset, right? Fixed thinking or scarcity thinking, right? Everything is always in scarcity. Everything is fear-based. Everything is held back. And when we look at that, here's the thing. Scarcity thinking leads to failure. It leads to fear. It leads to discontent every time, every single time. Abundance thinking, success, fulfillment, joy. And it's important, first of all, I want to bring awareness to the way that you're thinking. And the reason I can stand up here and talk about this, because I was born in 81 in Yugoslavia, in communism, socialism, right? And the way of thinking in communism is definitely not abundance, right? It's the exact opposite. Everything is blocked off. I mean, there is no democracy. There wasn't even business or capitalism or anything like that. Everything's governed. So I could change that, and I did change that. So everybody can change that, but you have to start with the awareness of where are you at with this? Because the thing is, I could give you literally any single tip about nutrition. If you don't believe that you can, or if there's some type of restricting belief that's scarcity-based, it's going to be very difficult for you to move forward. Does that make sense? So there's 4 dead giveaways when it comes to, I want to bring light to some of these things. There's 4 dead giveaways when it comes to scarcity thinking. Number 1, black and white thinking. Everything's black or white, right? Life isn't like that. Life is not like a toggle switch, right? There's a lot of gray, there's a lot of in-betweens. And even if something bad happened, does that mean it's always going to happen? Does that mean that you can't change it? No. Second one is personalizing. Personalizing means that if something happens, you attach it to how it's happening just to you. It wasn't I would say, an external factor that had nothing to do with you. It just happened. It's life. Number 3 is catastrophizing. That means that when something happens, you make it much bigger and you spread it all across every area. Because that's the 4th one, is universalizing. So if in fitness, or I've been trying to lose weight and I can't do it, well, it just means I always give up. So I'm going to always give up business and my relationships and everything else. You just start drawing it all across the board, right? And these are important things because you have to capture them, okay? You have to capture yourself, because awareness precedes change. So you have to start with becoming aware of these things, or it really is game over. This is why it was so important for me to come and talk about this thing first, right? So there's a couple of things. There's 3 different things that when we talk about these limiting beliefs, okay? One is assumptions about the world. Example, I can't start a business right now, the economy's terrible, right? That's an assumption around the world. Now, would you say that in a bad economy, there's a lot of people that started a business? Absolutely. So then, obviously, that doesn't mean that's true. But if you give it that belief system, guess what's going to happen? You're never going to want to start a business. You're never going to go out there and go for a higher position, whatever it may be, okay? I can't trust management. They always cheat on us. The politicians are this one's a big one right now. Politicians are going to ruin the economy, right? But what ends up happening, you give power to an external force and you do not look at your own actions, right? Because you start putting it out there, assumptions about the world. Then there's limiting beliefs about others. This is something like, hey, it's no use asking, he's too busy, right? Or if you send a text, oh, she's not responding, it means she doesn't like me, right? So you're putting a limiting belief about others out there. Is that true? Most of the time it's not. Sometimes even when it is, we have the power to change it, right? Or, oh, she's just a waitress at this place. What can she know? What is that, right? It's putting a belief on somebody else. Now, number 3, this is the most important one, beliefs about ourselves. I'm a quitter. I never finish what I start. And the thing is, you don't have to raise your hand here, but do you say that to yourself? And I'll explain why that's very possible and very normal sometimes, right? Because if you started and stopped 10 times, you start believing well, I'm a quitter. That's what happens. I can't help it. I've never been physically fit. It's my genes. Be honest. Anybody here ever said it's my genes? And the thing is, once again, look, this is not for me to point you out or anything. This is for me to bring light to the situation, because guess what? If you start saying, hey, it's my genes, right? It's in my DNA. It's just the way it is. Do you think that your actions will start aligning with the actions of somebody that wants to change? No, because you start believing that I just can't do that. Okay? So what causes this? First, know, right, that any type of block like this will stop progress. This is why we're talking about this first, right? Any block like this will stop progress. Number 2, what causes it? Previous failure. You rack up enough previous failure, what ends up happening is you start believing that that's not possible. So repeated setbacks can train us to assume the worst, right? It's almost the Pavlov theory. If every single time, you grab the kettlebell, you blew out your back, after 10 times, you'd be like, kettlebell, blown out back, kettlebell, blown out back, right? So same thing here, it can be, hey, you know what, I've done something and failed, so repeated times just makes us believe now that that's the case. So they condition us in a way, and they protect, you start protecting yourself by setting low standards, okay? So the other thing is news, social media, and this is a big one. I'm going to skip to this. So you guys ever heard of mirror negativity bias? All right, so mirror negativity bias is basically, right now we live in a world of social media, so it's either the negative stuff that comes at us and we start believing the world is falling apart, right? The second one is positivity bias. That's the one where we look at other people's lives on social media. Oh, everybody's lean but me. Everybody's creative. Everybody can make it happen. Everybody can do it. And the thing is, the more we're exposed to that, it starts creating and shifting our beliefs in a certain direction. So it's very, very important. Everything I'm going to talk about, you're going to notice that I'm going to talk about environments. What are the environments you're around? Are you around people that lift you up? Are you around people that talk to you in a way that you can do it? Or are you around people that always say, man, there's no point. Oh, this is the way things are, right? And once again, if you can leave here and start finding out who you're around and whether those people are empowering you or they're taking you in a direction that you don't want to go, those are sometimes tough decisions, but that's part of what we do, is create a community where everybody's trying to better themselves and support everybody else to better themselves. Now, obviously, our vehicle is fitness, but that goes for every area of life, every single area of life. So this is the foundation, and once again, it's so easy to go, Luka, start talking about nutrition. I promise you this, if we don't talk about this and if there's not an awareness around it, nothing changes. How do I know? We've done more transformation challenges, more coaching than you can ever imagine, okay? It's not an opinion, this is scientific fact, okay? Sometimes, hey, family, friends, coworkers, social areas, right? If I asked you, how do those environments trigger you? What are your behaviors associated around certain people? And we started writing them down. What would they be? Could you say, well, when I'm around these people, I do, and we just started listing it. I have pizza all the time, a beer, and this and that and the other. That's awareness. Now, I could explain here and go like, hey, listen, guys, if you're eating this many calories and this is how many calories is, in 4 beers and 2 pizzas and that's too much and yada, 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 right? That knowledge, I'm sure that some of it you have. You have to start finding out what your environments are like and how they're influencing you. These are hard things to do. But you know what I didn't want to do and what we don't want to be is that you come in here and I spit some like science about nutrition and sound really, really smart and you guys leave and like, yeah, that was great. And nobody does anything. That's not who we are. Like we are people that are wanting you to transform for good, period. Big difference. I did that a long time ago where I just spit so much facts and feel really good about myself. People would leave and lose some weight in 4, 5, 6 weeks and then gain it back. And then I went on a mission. About 6, 7 years ago, I went on a mission like studying behavior change and change psychology at like really, really deep levels so that I could figure this stuff out. Not just the X's and O's, but how do we help people actually implement this stuff? And these things are very, very important. And you know what? In my life, we all have this, right? Where maybe I don't have as many blind spots in nutrition and fitness. I have blind spots in other areas of my life, right? We all have it. So I'm standing here non-judgmentally because there's a lot of fuck-ups that I have. We all do, right? And you want those to be brought to attention because that's the only way that we can change, right? Just this weekend, I was hanging out with some really smart people in business that brought some stuff to light, and I was just like, oh man, I know. Like, I know that they're right, but awareness. I want those people in my life because guess what? It's the only way that I'm going to start shifting. So I'm here, and if you're uncomfortable right now, you know what? Good. But it's I'm compassionately talking to you in this way. This is not me standing here and going like, you guys are wrong, you're doing this or that. The goal is transformation for good, period. Okay? So this is a very, very powerful quote that you could literally write down from Dr. Henry Cloud. How well you do in life and business depends not only on what you do and how well you do it, but who you do it with, right? But who you do it with. Very, very powerful. So just think of it this way. Your belief is the lens that you view the world through, okay? So maybe when you start leaving, listen to people and how they speak. They speak things into existence. They talk about, they shine a light on positive things. Or is it a, I can't, you should, we can't, I'll start tomorrow, right? Once you guys ever seen the FedEx sign? Okay. Has anybody seen the arrow in the FedEx sign? So if you haven't, next time when you see it, here's the kicker. You won't be able to unsee it, right? You won't be able to unsee the arrow. This is the same way that this works. Once you start becoming aware of how people are around you, you go like, oh shit. Now, and then you can't start unseeing it, right? So that's very important because that's your lens. Truth number 3, very, very important. You can upgrade your beliefs. You can upgrade your beliefs. So let's do a little drill. Okay, limiting belief. So because money is a big belief that's like stopping a lot of people, right? I barely make enough money to meet my family's needs. You can always create a liberating truth to any limiting belief. So what would be a liberating truth to that statement? You know what? I have all the money I need to meet our obligations, accomplish our goals, and be generous with others. Now, here's the kicker. Does that mean at this point in time that I can do that? No, but if you keep telling yourself that you can't do something, how are you going to change it? Not possible. This is a big one, limiting belief. I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm too exhausted, right? That's a big one. Liberating truth. I have more than enough energy to accomplish the tasks that I undertake. Like we have to start shifting and taking limiting beliefs and then turning them around. This is very, very important. So one of the drills that we're going to get to, right? So one that I talk to clients often is believing that energy is something that like you don't have control over. You either have it or you don't have it, right? I can't tell you how many times we sit down. Luka, honestly, in these last 2 weeks, we've had countless examples where I don't know where I'm going to find the time or energy to do this. Now, if you say that to yourself, are you going to even look for a solution? It's not going to happen, right? You're blocking it off right off the bat. Well, I'm too busy. I don't have the time. On one side, it's like, I really want to get in shape. I really want to lose weight. I want to do this, that, and the other. I just don't have the energy and I don't have the time. But you see, there's nothing, like there's no tip that can change that unless the limiting belief gets turned into a liberating truth. I will make time. Hey, I have plenty of time if I shift around some of the things that I'm doing and where I'm putting my time and energy. So this is step number 1. Okay? So 6-step process. And guys, like I'm gonna share this especially that goes for everybody that's in the challenge. Like I'm gonna share all this with you so you guys will have access to this. But recognize the limiting belief about yourself, others, the world. Record the belief. Like today, when you go home, if you're not doing it right now, I want you guys to literally start writing out some of the beliefs that you have. This is hard but powerful, but it can be a big breakthrough. Right? You record the belief. Number 3, you review it. So by writing it down, you put it into existence. Now there's 2 things that you can do. Right? Sometimes when you write stuff down, I've written stuff down and looked at it and went like, where is this coming from? Like, how am I even thinking about this? Right? And then you have 2 things that you can do. It's like shining a light on a fear. Sometimes you shine a light on fear and you're like, oh man, it's not that scary. Right? But you either reject it or you reframe it. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting down with a client and we did this. And as she wrote stuff out, literally as she wrote it out, she was like, this is not true. I said, well, is this belief empowering? Is it this goal that you just shared with me? Is it helping you get there? Absolutely not. I don't even know where this is coming from. But this is literally what I've been telling myself. So that's rejecting a belief. Sometimes you reframe it. So I'm going to give you guys some example. Right? So once you reframe the belief, you have basically shifted to, let's give an example. Oh, I'm too old to be in the workforce and get this job. Reframing is saying, well, I have more experience than everybody else going into this position. Right? Somebody thinks, oh, I'm too old. Well, I got more experience. It's just the way that you look at it. So you have to start reframing this. Okay? Example, you failed 10 times on a diet. Well, guess what? You got a lot of resilience. You got a lot of courage to come back. Right? Because you do. If you keep coming back, that's what you're doing. And the thing is, this sounds foo-fooish, but it's not. Okay, it's absolutely not. You have to start reframing things because otherwise, week 2 or 3, you don't come back. And then you don't win, and then this repeats itself for the summer, back to school in September, next January, right? Our goal is to put an end to this forever so that the changes that you make are consistent changes and they become a part of your life and they become a part of your habits. But it starts with mindset. It starts with mindset. I would be doing myself a disservice, you guys a disservice, if I didn't talk about this stuff first. Okay? So changing belief systems. Know that you have agency. Agency means, the other day I talked about at the end of a team training session, and I said, what is resilience? Number 1 thing in resilience is taking responsibility for your own life. So everything that you have or do not have, you have to take responsibility of it. Right? And Will Smith talked about this and said, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to change it. Maybe something happened. I don't know. Car hits you. You break a leg. Is that your fault? Absolutely not. It's not your fault. But is it your responsibility to rehab it, to get better and to change your life for the better? Or are you going to wait for the person to hit you to come and give it back to you? Or, and fix your leg and say, I'm sorry, and make things right in your life? No. This is massively important for you to take responsibility. Once again, same thing. If you don't do anything and you mess up, it's okay. You can course correct. That's the best thing about life, that you can course correct. Okay? So I'm going to skip forward to one of the really, really important things. You can see that there's a lot of damn slides in here, huh? All right. This is another one that we're going to tap into. And I'm sure you guys have heard of this, right? But tapping into your why, okay? We get a lot of people that are like, okay, who has a thought process? Who has a thought process here that said, I want to do this challenge and lose 15 pounds? Or 10 or 12 or whatever it may be, right? And so, did you ask yourself, why is that important to you? So have anybody ever heard of the messy middle? So the messy middle is like this. Imagine if you're a ship and you're going from one part of the shore to another part of the shore. at the beginning, you're motivated. At the beginning, you're like, yay. When you start this challenge, it's yay. You're excited. You made a decision. Let's go, right? And everybody thinks that, well, there's a start and there's a finish. But in between is the messy middle, right? The messy middle, to get through the messy middle, like you have to have deeper motivations than just saying, well, I just want to be a little fitter, right? I just want to feel a little better. Like we got to go deeper than that, okay? So starting is simple, but the climb is always steeper and it always takes longer than you think. So I would say that I'm probably the opposite of a lot of people that go, hey, this is going to be really easy. It's going to be really simple. Whereas we do give you a ton of the resources. We're always there for support and all these different factors. But at the end of the day, like if you prepare for it to be challenging and tap into why are you actually doing this? Why are you actually here? Why are you actually getting started? Okay, that's very, very important. Matter of fact, when it gets hard, that's the only thing that brings you back. Otherwise, you fall off and then you try to start back up again. But if it's a surface level reason, you're not going to finish, okay? So question for you, why are you doing this in the first place? And is it different, is the answer different than the last time you did it? That's very important. Why are you doing this in the first place? I legitimately, seriously, I would rather that somebody answer these questions, not start, not join, but really dig deep, than to not answer that question, start and be out in 3 weeks. And even like if you guys invested, you know what? Because that doesn't fulfill us. That's not our mission. My mission is not to keep seeing you coming back. It's for you to keep staying on so that you change for good. So that's very, very important. So you got to identify your key motivations. You have to. And you have to write down 10 reasons. Write down 10 reasons why are you even doing this? And then pick the top 3. And once you pick the top 3, have them written down somewhere that you can look, because guess what? When it gets hard, and it's going to get hard, so you can look at them. And maybe, you know what? Well, you know what's powerful reasons? Hey, being a role model to your kids. Having the energy to be able to come home, play with the kids, and be able to go after your career and do this, that, and the other. Like, those are big, big motivations. Do you ever have them written down? Because guess what? Life happens and then you forget. And the thing is, I've done this thousands of times. That's why I know. And it's frustrating for me personally, but to see other people because they don't have those motivations in front of them. So once again, all the things that sometimes you hear, I always say, just like we started with the broccoli and the fish and this, that, oh, I know. But you only know when you start applying this, right? There is a science, like I said, to goal setting. There's a science to success. But consistency is such a big part of it. So autonomous motives are basically the reasons we find deeply and personally compelling. And you got to find those. Otherwise, like once you get stuck, and you are going to get stuck, it's just normal. Like even the science of fat loss, fat loss doesn't go like this. It's more like this, right? And so when that happens, how do you stick on? How do you stay on board? How do you not fall off? So intrinsic motivation, so this is very, very important. Intrinsic motivation is the reasons why you guys are doing it, right? Extrinsic motivation, never connect goals to somebody else's desires for you, right? Or, well, the outside world thinks this, so that's going to be my motivation. I want to look good for somebody else. My boss says this, my parents say that, whatever it may be. That's always going to be short term. You have to find intrinsic motivation. What fulfills you deeply? I promise you this. I want to, perfect example. What is not an intrinsic motivator? I want to get ready for the beach. Now, I get it, right? That is something that a lot of people, I got this coming up. I got that coming up. Now, that's an external motivator, which may work very short term, but it's not going to work long term. So we have to find deeper motivators so we stay on board. Because guess what? After 6 weeks, you want to continue doing this, right? In whatever format, whatever you get, you don't want to fall off and lose it, right? If it's eating habits, which we're going to get to in a little bit, right? If it's eating habits, you don't want to do it for 6 weeks and then fall off because you'll go right back to where you were, right? It's also a reason why we don't do very, very, well, here's a meal plan. Here you go. Peace out. Because what happens? One, if you can even stick to the meal plan, right? What happens when there is no meal plan? You have what's called autonomy, right? You have no choice. So if you get the meal plan, you don't have skill sets. And we talk about, it's not about willpower, it's about skill power. So I'm going to flip back to like how we have level 1, 2, and 3 for our 6-week challenge when it comes to nutrition. I'm going to flip forward here so that we get to this real quick. All right, now, first of all, guys, let me tell you the cycle of what we want you to avoid, okay? This is the very kind of basic but yet scientific rollout on what happens. People go on a diet, they restrict energy intake because when you go on a diet, almost always you're going to lower your calories, right? So what ends up happening? Your low calorie intake reduces metabolic activity. You eat less calories, you're going to start losing some weight. But if you reduce them a lot, your metabolism slows down because your brain says, you know what, I have to survive. So this is normal, this is automatic. Now, because the body tries to restore energy balance, there's going to be an increased appetite. Perfect example. You see a lot of this around. 1,200 calorie diets, 1,400 calorie diets, very, very low calorie diets. Now, if you have to consume, especially when you're active, if you're here training, if you're an active person, most people have to consume a lot more than that. Now, you are going to lose some weight, but what ends up happening is the brain goes like, whoa, 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 whoa. I need calories for survival. So there's a lot of things that start happening. Appetite goes up, and now when you see a salad and a cake, it's not even about the fact that the cake tastes better. It's that your brain goes, this is way more calories, so I want that. Okay, so that's very important to understand because from there, dieters usually fall off the wagon. You can't diet through stuff, okay? So when you fall off the wagon, what happens? Despite more energy coming in, your metabolism still stays low, and you get what's called a kickback effect, and you put on more weight. Now, be really honest with me, okay? Who here has lost weight and gained it back at least one time? Okay. Who here has lost weight and gained it back 3 times? More than 5? Okay. So this is exactly what happens, okay? The way that our body works. You cut calories significantly, you lose weight, metabolism drops, and then at a certain point in time, you're like, okay, I'm off the diet, I lost some weight. You start eating a little bit more. Now, even if you ate less than what you did previously, your metabolism drops so much that the calories are excess calories, and then you start putting weight back on. Does that make sense? Right? And you cannot trick the metabolism. You can't. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to eat less and less. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay? So there's a certain approach that we take because now you have weight regain and it happens again. And the more time that you do it, there's something called metabolic adaptation. That's why I asked you guys, how many times did you gain and lose weight? Because the more times that you did it, the more metabolic adaptation there is. The great thing about it is that there's a process and a way and an approach to change this so that you can succeed and win. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so first of all, advanced strategies are most of the time basically like a gun that backfires. Okay? Literally think about that. Because the mentality is you want to go harder. So whether it's a detox, whether it's a very aggressive meal plan. Okay? So when you do that, it backfires because you do exactly that. The calories drop significantly. Okay? So here's the thing. What you want to do is build skill sets. Now I'm going to go over these baseline skill sets that if you build, you will be successful. And what I mean by this is like willpower versus skill power, right? If you have willpower, that means that you're coming home, you're tired, you're exhausted, and there's a salad and there's a cookie, and you're like, I'm not going to eat the salad. I'm not going to eat the cookie. I'm not going to eat the cookie. That's willpower, but it runs out. And not only does it run out, willpower runs, like our willpower is not individualized and specific to one thing. What does that mean? If you had to stand your boss all day and he was pissing you off, you're using willpower, right? And when you get home and you're exhausted, see, now that willpower is juiced out, you're not going to make the right decision because you're going to be so tired and you're going to be. So we have to build not willpower, but skill power and skill sets. So here's some of the skill sets. 1, eating slowly, right? And you'll say to yourself, well, okay, that sounds like really basic. Okay, I guarantee you right now, if you set a timer and made every meal be 15 minutes long this week or the next 2 weeks, I guarantee you, one, you will eat less calories and you will lose weight. I can almost guarantee you that, okay? In America, there's this thing which is full versus stuffed, okay? Most people will eat to stuffed and think that that is full, where really we should be eating to 80% full. So those two habits go together. Eating slowly to 80% and mindful eating, okay? That's a habit. That's a habit, guys, right? So if you started working on, give you a perfect example, how could you train this? Okay, you could train it setting a timer for 15 minutes every time you eat and see how, are you doing it for 15 minutes? The way the brain works, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for satiety to kick in. So if we eat way faster, my brain never knows that we're full, so we overeat and we eat the stuffed. So that is a skill set. We've had, and like I said, you pick and choose which person takes on whichever habit. And that's what we're going to talk about in a second, level 1, 2, and 3. How you guys are going to succeed within this challenge, taking on certain habits. Then we have, this is a very, very powerful one. Eat lean protein with every meal, okay? So there's a study. They took 2 groups. One group ate the way they were eating before. Group number 2, they just gave them one thing to do. And that thing was to eat 30 to 40 grams of protein in 4 meals per day. Nothing else, no other restrictions. Not telling them which type of drinks, everything else was do whatever you want to do. You have one thing that we want you to do, and that's eat 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. At the end of 12 weeks, the group that ate the protein ate 441 calories less than the group that did not eat the protein. Why? Now, there's a number of reasons. One, protein is a food that has a lot of satiety. When you eat it, if you eat chicken, if you eat fish, if you eat cottage cheese, foods that are high in protein, you fill up faster. And you will not be able to eat more. It also has what's called a thermic effect of food. So for you to process protein, you actually burn 30% of what you eat. Where with carbs, it's only 11 and fat only 3. So that means that if you eat more protein, just eating the same amount of calories, you're going to burn more calories because protein is a thermogenic food. Now, eating protein with every meal, once again, it's a skill set and a habit. This is another one of the big habits that we promote. So that would mean that for the next week, I was like, okay, cool. Just focus on every meal adding 30 to 40 grams of protein. Now, it could be a protein shake. It'll be whatever food source that you like. So we create grocery lists. You guys go oh, well, I like this. Cool, go with that. We're not going to restrict you in what you eat. You're going to eat whatever you want. But there's going to be some frameworks, okay? Now, this is what's really important. What tends to happen is, so if I took anybody from here and said, okay, look, we're going to start working to give you 30, 40 grams of protein per meal. To do that every meal may be too big of a habit right off the bat. Does that make sense? Yes. So if there's, okay, raise your hands if you like to eat 3 meals a day. Okay, what about 4? Anybody like to eat 2? Couple. Okay. None of those is wrong. Okay, so just so you know that not one of those is wrong. If you like eating 6, eat 6. If you like eating 2, eat 2. If you like to eat 4, eat 4. There is no right or wrong. When people, 5, 10 years ago, people would say, hey, you know what? The more meals you eat, the more your metabolism revs up. Is bullshit. Right? That's been proven now that that's not wrong. So we like to promote for you to eat the way that you like to eat, because if you're eating 2 meals a day and I say, hey, listen, you got to eat 7, that's going to freak you out, right? There's no way you're going to do that. We might be able to get it to 3, but why not do what you like doing, right? We don't fit things. It's not putting a round peg through a square hole, okay? But once again, very important point. This is a skill set. I'm stopping on the ones that are very important. Eating at least 5 servings of colorful fruits and veggies per day. Fruits and veggies, high in fiber, high in micronutrients, low in calories, right? I wish I could show you some infographics that I have right here. 1 cup of Brussels sprouts, 17 calories. Imagine eating 10 cups of Brussels sprouts. Do you think that you could eat them? Halfway through, you're like, shit, I'm done, right? I'm done. But the thing is, you'd be halfway through, but you would have ate 85 calories. That's it. So much fiber, so much nutrients, right? But so little calories. Now, I'm not, like I said, this is not the point that oh, you should just eat veggies. One of the habits inside of our system is put a half a plate of veggies. You do whatever you want with the rest of it. Put a half a plate of veggies. Guess what starts happening? People start dropping weight. People start feeling better. Digestive system starts getting better. They're getting the micronutrients that usually they aren't getting. Once again, that is a skill. Sometimes, hey, if you want to make it easier, greens products. Like we have Athletic Greens. There's a bunch of greens products on the market. But you put 1 serving into your water in the morning, or you put it into a smoothie. That gets you 6, 7, 8 servings of vegetables per day. That's one way of doing it. Now notice, we covered 3 main different habits. If you change these 3 habits for the rest of 2018, you would be in the best shape of your life, weight-wise. I would bet it. If you could do that 80 to 90% of the time, you would. And those are skill sets, where every day you tick it off and say, Luka, today or this week, 90% of the time, I ate protein with every meal. 80 to 90% of the time, I had half a plate of veggies. 80 to 90% of the time, I ate mindfully, 12 to 15 minutes. You are a completely different human being at the end of this year. And it becomes a skill set. You don't have a meal plan, right? You're not asking for like, can you give me the meal plan? Because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't have a meal plan, so I can't. I'm basically dependent on this external thing. No, like you have a skill set. You go to the restaurant. You know how much a palm of protein is. You know how much 2 fistfuls of veggies are. You know how much fat to have, just like a thumb of fat. Those are skill sets, guys. And you develop those skill sets, guess what you're not doing? You're not stressing out all the time and bringing in scales into the restaurant. People are looking at you weird and your social life goes down the drain, right? Now, the thing is, I'm not saying that, measuring your food or tracking your calories is the wrong thing at all. Actually, I'm gonna show you like where you do that. Another one of the habits is eating smart carbs, right? Now, smart carbs are just carbs that are slower digesting. They're better. They're from put it this way, from unprocessed whole foods, right? Versus processed carbohydrates, which is obviously bars and breads and a lot of the, I would definitely say, sweet and savory stuff that's out there, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate everything, but that's a skill set. Imagine that. If you could look at your plate, and that's one of the things we're going to encourage inside of the coaching group, is taking pictures of the foods that you eat from top down. I don't know if anybody follows me on Instagram and sees my stories. Whenever I go to restaurants, I'm just a foodie, so I'm always taking pictures of the food top down. But the thing is, when you take a picture of the food top down, what does it do? You see exactly what you're eating. This much of this much of that. It's very easy to visually see what your plate is like. And we actually have these pictures of plates that are kind of ideal plates. But you put the food, you decide which food you're going to eat within certain constraints, okay? Eating healthy fats. So there's one habit that's called planning vigor-friendly meals. And it literally is a plate, okay, where a chunk of the plate is protein, half of the plate is veggies, you have a part of the plate that's smart carbs and fat. If every day you just made your plate at least two out of 3 meals like that, with the foods that you like, I'm not telling you this is what you should eat. If I ask you, hey, what are the proteins that you like? Oh man, Luka, I like fish, I like lean ground turkey, I like buffalo, I like elk, I like eggs, I like cottage cheese. You just went down the street, I was like, cool, eat that. Actually, matter of fact, here's a bunch of recipes that you can make under 10 minutes for that. Or here's a smoothie that you can make in 3 minutes and it will fit that. Like, does that sound something that's simpler to do than to get a meal plan and go like, shit, I gotta plan 29 meals for the week. I mean, I can't plan 29 meals for the week. And to be honest, it's like I'm insanely busy. This is the way that I approach everything. I've trained the highest level pro athletes. Guess what we do? This. Right? Because we're trying to get them off of Big Macs and Coca-Cola a lot of times to do this stuff. No, this is true. Right? One of the habits is recording what you eat. Now that could be in MyFitnessPal, it could be in a journal, whatever you want to do. But why is it important? Why do you think it's important to record what you eat? Accountability, for sure. But number one is awareness. All right, I'm gonna go, what did you might actually know, but what did you eat last Tuesday?
I know exactly what I ate.
Yeah, see, you're a bad example though. So you got, that's a bad example. Sam, what did you eat last Tuesday? No idea.
It's my birthday.
What did you eat 2 days ago?
Steak.
What did you eat 2 days ago?
I don't know.
Right? And like I said, look, if you ask me, I don't really know that well. The point of it is, when I sit down with somebody and say, I ate pretty good, Luka. I said, great. Can you tell me what you ate 2 days ago? Can't remember. So how can you say that you eat pretty good when you can't remember? Right? And it's the same thing as a bank account, right? We don't like to look at things when they're not the way that we want them to be. Right? It's avoiding it. I don't really know. But awareness, like you, first of all, how do you, like if you want to go from point A to point B in a GPS, what do you have to do? You have to put in point A first. Where am I? And then where do I want to go? And a lot of people know where they want to go, but they don't know where they are. And where they are is when we do the in-body assessment. This is how much you weigh. This is what your body fat percentage is. This is what your hydration levels are. We got a point A. But also, point A is also like, okay, let's look at your week. What are you eating for breakfast? What are you eating for lunch? What are you eating for dinner? It is an assessment. So tracking that obviously gives us a point of reference to what A is, and then we can help you start changing it. Because if I don't know, can I help you change something if I do not know where you are? If the only information I have is I eat pretty good, right? That's very, very, very challenging. So we have to track, and that's basically one of the habits. Believe it or not, one of the habits is creating a sleep ritual. Why would we talk about sleep when it comes to losing body fat and weight? Why would that even be a ritual? Because put it this way, if you don't sleep well, we used to have a rule that if somebody was sleeping under 4 or 5 hours, we wouldn't even address anything else until that got better, right? Because it messes up the hormones so much. It's proven, like the less you sleep, the more you eat, satiety is thrown off, you're hungrier, anxiety is higher. When you're more emotional, you have more emotional eating, right? Another habit, drinking zero-calorie beverages. The average American drinks 447 calories per day. 447 calories per day. Now, let's look at this. Let's say that your calorie intake per day should be around 2,000. That means 1/4 of what you eat comes from drinking something. And when we ask people, how do you eat? They never mention their drink. And that's hundreds of calories. But if you took that 447 calories and brought it down to either 0 or brought it down to 100, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, you're seeing results. So one of the habits in there, if you're drinking Coca-Cola, go to Coke Zero. That's okay. That's step one. It's better, right? And so we encourage that, but that's a habit. You could look at the end of the day and check it off and say, did I drink zero-calorie beverages all day? Tea, water, Coke Zero, unflavored, vitamin water, zero, whatever it may be, right? I guarantee you, there's a guy, Jason, was a great example. That was his habit. That was his first habit for the first 3 weeks that was with us at Vigor, and he dropped 16 pounds. And he literally came to us and said, that's all you're going to tell me? I said, look, track it though. Track this every day. You're going to do the check mark. We're going to see if you're compliant. He was 90% compliant. His first 3 weeks, he dropped 16 pounds. And he was like, whoa, this is cool, right? And then we added another habit on top of that, and so on and so forth. But once again, the power of changing your habits that actually are not overwhelming is massive. Eating whole foods only, right? Now, I don't expect anybody here to eat just whole foods, okay? Look, 10%, 15% of the time, if you're eating processed food, that's perfectly fine. But if 85 to 90% of the time you eat whole unprocessed foods, guess what? You're going to be eating way less calories, way more nutrients. And even without thinking about, how much am I taking in, you're going to see a lot of positive results. Right? So these are the things that we end up encouraging, and it becomes rules, right? Changing your environment, that's massive. Now, we talked about that at the beginning, but let's talk about what we did with changing our environment. Why did we bring FitBar into the gym? Because when people get done now, you have a healthy snack. You can have a protein shake, right? That's like lower in calories, higher in protein. Plus, if you want to do a lean greens and you have spinach in there and so forth, right? If right now you're eating in a cafeteria at your work and there's no good choices, that's an environment, right? How do you go to a cafe that's just a little down the street and you walk for 5 minutes, but they have a great salad with ahi tuna, with like things that you love? You change your environment, you make a better decision. There's a quote that I love that says, environments trigger behaviors, right? When you're at Vigor Ground, guess what? There's a behavior that gets triggered. One, you're going to work out. You're going to work out hard, but you're going to have a lot of support. You're going to be fired up. And then when you leave here, you start going like, man, you know what? let me have that smoothie. Then you have the smoothie. Then you're not hungry to have maybe the donut or the bagel or something that you were going to have afterwards. And so you see one behavior starts changing all types of different behaviors. So starting assessing your environments. So imagine that like most people try to do a lot of things at once. So I just named a bunch of different habits. Now imagine if we went and said, okay, look, Barb, you're going to start changing, eating protein with every meal. I want you to cut out all the calories and beverages. I want you to have half a plate of vegetables. Okay, I want you to get your sleep to 8 hours a night. Like, you're already freaking out. I'm just talking about it. You're freaking out already, right? That's too much. Okay, so imagine the shiny object syndrome, or if I put energy into multiple directions, okay? And so there's 8 arrows going this way. What if I put all the arrows into one arrow? It goes way further, correct? Okay, so what we do when people say, well, that's too easy. I'm like, great, if it's so easy, then you'll have no problem doing it for the next 7 to 10 days, okay? So that's the approach that we take. Now, here's the kicker. Whereas Barb may be able to do more than Sam, or the other way around, or Joel might be able to do less or more. That's why there is no one fixed plan, but there is principles, okay? So we're going to go to this, okay? We're going to do habit stacks. So 6-week challenge. Level 1, this is how it works. I shared with you a bunch of different habits. The first ones are eat until 80% full. Number 2 is eat protein with every meal. And we literally have either 1 handful for 2 handfuls for guys, 1 handful for women. Right? That is a habit. Number 3, drink only 0-calorie beverages and have a half a plate of veggies with every meal. That is our level 1. So what do I mean by that? That is what you guys would start doing. Now, inside of the group, we're going to have some sample meal plans. We're going to have a drag and drop template on how to make your meals from the things that you enjoy. But you can only move on to level 2 when you are doing those 4 habits 80% of the time. So how would that look like? Okay? That means that at the end of every day, if you could tick off and say, hey, I've had protein with every meal, 80% of the meals. I had half a plate of veggies 80% of the time. I drank 0-calorie beverages 80% of the time, right? And I ate mindfully. And there's a lot of different tactics that we could go very deep into, but that's obviously the point of the coaching group and us helping you guys out and give you more strategies. But if you do those, you can go to level 2, okay? Now, I promise you this, if for this whole 6 weeks, you just follow the level 1 80% of the time, you will have massive success, okay? And you will not be crazy overwhelmed. Now, level 2, we start adding in tracking. You can track 2 ways. You can use the app, MyFitnessPal, My Macros Plus, whatever you want, right? And we will have certain specific guidelines for where you should be with calories. Or you can do something that we call the handful diet, okay? So the handful diet is what I mentioned before. Every meal, men, 2 palms of protein, women, 1 palm of protein. Carbs, fistfuls. So you could come into a restaurant. This is what I love about this, right? And we teach this skill set. Is you could come into a restaurant and go like, oh, that's about 1 palm of protein. Oh, that's this much carbs. Oh, this is this much veggies, great. And 1 thumb of fat, right? You pick and choose, right? Once again, we create what's called autonomy. So if you guys have ever heard of self-determination theory, how people succeed is that they have to choose. So if I tell you what you have to do, you actually will not be successful with it. But if you get a choice and you go like, I want to do that, success rate goes through the roof. And it becomes a skill set. So you pick and choose. At level 2, if you guys want to track calories, post them inside of the group. Ask us what we change and what's the next step. We do that. If you find it way easier and go like, that's too stressful, I just want to go and start looking at palms of protein, this much carbs, your choice. And only then, if you can do 80%, you can do that 80% of the time, there's level 3, which to be honest with you, like cycling carbs and fats is a more advanced strategy, okay? You can be as lean and as ripped as you want to be, never doing that in your life, by the way, right? That's a very, very big misconception that comes into play more with athletes, people that want to step on stage and things like that. So it has its place. The kicker is this, that a lot of people jump to level 3 without mastering level 1, right? When should I after post-workout, how many carbs should I eat? I'm like, hey, did you have a palm of protein with every meal? No. Which supplement, which BCAAs should I take? Did you drink water, right? Now, here's the kicker. When we talked about 0-calorie beverages, here's how powerful these little habits are per se, okay? They've shown that, once again, in studies, these are 16-week studies with tons of groups, is that one group drank 500 milliliters, which is about a quarter gallon, okay? A little less than quarter gallon, about a quarter gallon of water before every meal. That's it. That's the only thing they did different. They lost 4 times more fat than the group that did. That's it. Nothing else. Once again, a study on protein, a study on water. The other thing that they found is that the metabolism increased 24% 60 minutes post drinking water, right? Because of the body has to basically find balance in osmosis. It's very geeky stuff, but nonetheless. And obviously water is involved in every single function in the body. So it's very important for a lot of things, but it's also another thing that makes us full. You ever try drinking a quarter gallon of water before you ate and then try to eat as much as you did before? Not happening. It's not happening, right? So these are very, very powerful things because once again, do you freak out if I say, hey, for the next 10 days, drink about 3 to 5, one of those small plastic ones of water before you have a meal? Does that sound crazy stressful to you? No, and that's the kicker, that it doesn't, but you'd get a result. And so you see, the advanced strategies, they come into play, but you have to earn them because it's a skill set. And once again, level 1, level 2, level 3. If I'm precision nutrition certified, level 1, level 2, I've done all these different courses. And when we teach that there, do you know that it's not even advised to go that it's actually not healthy to be in level 3, right? They don't advise it. They say, hey, listen, athletes for a certain period of time, be there, but then come back to level 1. The things that I just mentioned at the beginning, if you can master that skill set, 80 to 90% of the time, you will look, feel, move, and perform the way that you want to. If I looked at a 4-month, 5-month block of your life, and every day I could tick off those habits, you would be the way that you would look the way that you want to look, feel the way that you want to feel, and perform the way that you want to perform. And I would put money down Vegas style on that, right? Without having to go, man, I am not tracking calories. Now, there's no right or wrong. We have clients like a Tim who loves that. He's a numbers guy. Works for him, great. Once again, this is very malleable and everybody's different. For the vast majority of people, I would say 75, 80% of people, the habit route and working one habit at a time or stacks of habits that I mentioned, that's a winner, okay? So think of it in those terms. I'm just gonna flip over here to the end. So some of the things that we basically teach is we have it's a template. So imagine if you dragged and dropped your meals, and in one lane there was here's the proteins, and then the second one is here's the smart carbs, and the third one is here's the vegetables, and then fourth one is here's the quality fats. You literally create your meals from that, based on the structures that we just talked about. Okay, so this is a different approach than most people teach, because most people teach well, guys, come in and you'll just get one thing that you can work off, and that's that. Now, we've done that in the past, right? So, like I said, we've been around 11 years. We've done more transformation contents that I can count. And when we started doing that, we had meal plans. And what happened is some people had really good success in the short term. A lot of people fell off. It was way too much. They started feeling unsuccessful because they couldn't stick to meal plans. Because what happens when your day goes wrong? Right? Meal plans are like walking on a tightrope. Legitimately, if I had a tightrope right here, and it's you got kids, you're working a 14-hour day, you didn't sleep, but the meal plan says X, Y, Z. And you're like, shit, I can't, fuck. And the thing is, then you fall off, but what happens? You feel unsuccessful. You feel like a failure, right? And we talked about these limiting beliefs before. You keep falling off and feeling like a failure, and you start believing that it's you, and that you just weren't meant for it. You just don't have the self-discipline. That's a big one. I just don't have the self-discipline to do this. But really, it's more about like taking on too much of a challenging thing, okay? So I'll tell you right off the bat, like I'm not the most organized person. I am the most crazy, workaholic, obsessive person when it comes to this. But if you went to my office, it looks like a shit show, right? And if you went like, Luka, okay, by next week, I want you to really clean this up. We've tried this, okay? It goes horribly wrong every time for the last 10 years, okay? But when we go, well, listen, can you just move the computer and this here over there? And I'm like, okay, that's feasible. And then I do it, and then I do that small thing 5 or 6 or 7 times, and guess what? All of a sudden, stuff is clean, right? Or preferably, you know what's even better? Outsource that shit, right? But wait a second. You know, I'm making a point here too, because guess what? Can you? So right now, I have another, like, I eat well, but I work so much that I'm always eating out. So I got some help, and somebody's making me meals. It changes everything for me. Changes me. It helps me save time, helps me save money. I eat better meals, healthier meals, right, while actually paying less. So this is the thing. Could you? What is the meal that messes you up the most? Is it lunch? Right now, there are like in Seattle, there are more companies that are like for $10, $12 a meal, you can get incredible food for 5 meals a week. If you get it, you will not eat a bad thing. You will eat the thing that you love, that you ordered for yourself, right? Why make things harder on yourself? So these are the types of things that we coach on and teach, right? Like why? Like, same thing. Why would I try to it's like white knuckling it. I'm going to white knuckle and try to organize all my stuff when I'm not good at that, but there is a solution that is better. That's why we're huge on, if you guys, anybody here like smoothies? My breakfast is a smoothie. That's it. But it's got all great stuff in it. Whey protein, spinach, kale, some blueberries, some strawberries, a little bit of almond butter or MCT, almond milk, and I blend it up, and it tastes amazing. But guess what? I'm getting all the things that we talked about in there. It takes me 3 minutes. So when people are like, I don't have time to make breakfast, I'm like, man, can you do this for like 60 seconds? Right? Once again, limiting belief. Yes, you can. Right? Why create habits and skill sets that make your life easier and where you become successful? Because you want to know how to build self-esteem and confidence? You have to win, right? So if I set humongous goals all times, what ends up happening is I lose, and I keep losing, and all of a sudden, my confidence and self-esteem goes to the shitter, right? Self-esteem is like debits and credits in a bank account, okay? The amount of times that you say, I'm going to do this, and then you don't, that's a debit, and a debit, and a debit. And after a long time, you don't believe yourself. So the way to start winning is to do smaller things and be successful at them. Low-hanging fruit. Brian Tracy talked about, you guys may have heard of Eat the Frog, right? Was a book. Eat the Frog. Hey, you're going to do something hard. You might as well do the hardest thing right off the bat. No. Don't do that. Do the easiest thing. Because when you do the easiest thing, what happens is you get a win. And when you get a win, you build confidence. So you go after another win, and another win, and another win. And all of a sudden, you're starting to feel very, very confident, and then you can take on more and more and more. You don't go to the hardest thing when you've failed doing the hardest thing multiple times, right? So when we talk about like these habits, there is a strategy. Matter of fact, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? Because this is how we approach this. All right. So in this example, let's say you want to build muscle, okay? So you ask yourself 4 questions. First of all, you go, what is the behavior that I want to change? Okay? In this case, I'm going to train 3 times a week and follow a specific workout plan. So example, you come here, you do team training. You don't even have to think about it, right? That's what the behavior involves. Why does it matter? Because remember, we have to have not only intellectual buy-in, but emotional buy-in. If you say, well, why should I do strength training? Well, if you want to lose fat, guess what? Strength training, first of all, it promotes lean muscle building or maintaining it. 2, is you have something after it called EPOC, which means your body uses a lot of oxygen. So even when you go home, watch TV, and sleep, you burn more calories than if you didn't do it, right? And guess what? Our metabolism is based on our muscle. If you lose muscle, your metabolism goes down, you burn less calories, okay? So that's important. So how will I know if I've done it? Very simple. I checked it off. I came to Vigor 3 times a week to team training where I train with my coach. Okay, what will tell me it's time to move on? So if you went for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, 80% of the time, it's time to move on and add the next habit. Make sense? Right? So we have a behavior map that you guys will fill out and just go, hey, this is what I commit to. This is the habit that I want to commit to. And then you start tracking a habit. And from there, when you have 80%, you stack on the next habit. It will blow your mind to see how successful you can be actually doing less work, but making it more strategic, right? Because people say, that's slow. I'm like, no. It's strategic. It's strategic, right? When I say, hey, eat protein with every meal and drink some water before every meal and do that for 2 weeks, people think that want to make it more complex. And then they make it more complex and they fall off. Strategic. We've seen massive results with simple strategic tasks, okay? So that is the approach that we take. You go as hard or as easy as you want to go, but you do have to own it, because making it harder, if you haven't been able to do the simpler and easier thing, is just not the approach, right? And if you guys have, like I said, have done this before, and I know a lot of hands went up when you said that you have, gained and lost weight before. Our goal is that doesn't happen again, ever. That whatever you get, that's your skill set that you've built. And you don't look back, right? So tell me this. Would you rather lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks and then gain it back? Or would you rather lose 12 pounds in 6 weeks, but then keep the majority of the results? Right? I mean, it's the same analogy as like, hey, I give you 100 grand, you don't have it by the end of the month. Or you get 40 grand, but you get to keep all of it. Right? So that's the approach that we take. And it's like, look, once again, I've gone all around the world, studied from everybody, the smartest people on the planet. And this is what works. Okay, this is what works. Like what you see in media does not work majority of the time. It doesn't. Right? It doesn't. I will give you a statistic that will blow your mind. Okay? In the last 10 years, gym memberships in America have gone up 65%. 65%. Obesity has gone right up with it. Cardiovascular disease is worse than it's ever been. Right? Because it's not about the gym membership. It's about the change of habits. It's about being in an environment where you're getting coached. An environment that triggers positive behaviors. I've worked for the big box gyms. If 20% of the people show up, they'd shut it down, right? They bet on you not winning. We bet that you'll win. Matter of fact, you know the only way that we stay open is like if you keep coming back. Seriously. That is how Vigor Ground has survived. Is not survived, but thrive is because of the results. That's it. Because I can't afford to just have a membership and then people don't show up. So it's like, I'll do whatever it takes for that to happen. But I bet on you winning. And so I've went around the world to find everything there is about transformation. I'm not going to say everything there is because I'm still flying around figuring it out, right? But the point of it is that you guys do things that don't make you have to go on a roller coaster again. Okay? So with that said, first of all, thank you for going through this presentation, even though everything went to kind of turn out the worst that it can. But I'll also say this, when things like this happen, I always try to take a lesson from it, and I try to take a point from it. Okay? We talked about limiting beliefs, and we talked about reframing. I reframe this because, one, I reframe and say, hey, look, we need to be 5 times more prepared. And even if anything else goes wrong, you know what? I'm going to make the most out of it. Think about your nutrition. Think about your plan when it goes to shit. Are you going to make the most out of it, or are you going to just fall off and give up? I mean, trust me that like in scenarios like this, it's very easy for me to even go, oh man, let's just reschedule. Oh my goodness, I'm like, this would have been the best presentation ever, and now I don't have the slides and whatever, right? You reframe and you still make it work. Like, because this is life. You know, trust me, I did not plan this to be like, I'm gonna make a point and fuck everything up, right? Absolutely not, right? But the point of that is that like, this is legitimately how you guys' lives are, right? You go into the day and go like, this is what I'm gonna do. And then it doesn't happen that way. So now you have, number one, you have to be prepared for plan B and C, but you also have to rely on your skill sets and not just on willpower. And so that's very, very, very important. So even though like, hey, look, I'm gonna turn it around, that something that didn't turn out the way that I wanted to, it doesn't matter, because your life is always, there's always gonna be stuff happening. You can't plan it out, right? There's only, what you can control is your attitude, your actions, your behaviors, despite of everything that happens to you. And that is, believe it or not, what nutrition and training and coaching is here, is like helping you become autonomous, right? Our goal is that like, when you leave here, like you have all the skill sets to win. And so you want to keep coming back because of the community, because of the environment, because you can keep growing and keep improving. But that's the kicker. It's helping you build skill sets. Now, in the 6 weeks, because once again, like, you know, I've even openly talked about not being a fan of shorter term stuff. So I always share it. You know what, this 6 weeks, it is a catalyst, right? We have a group of people and they push each other, you're gonna get better results. But there's always a frame. At the end of the 6 weeks, we keep building on the skill sets that you've built while you were here. And we keep building and we keep building until that is who you become. Like I said, it's not about what you do, it's about who you become. What you do, hey, can you go on a detox for 8 weeks? Absolutely. You can white knuckle it, right? You can white knuckle a detox. Oh, I can't wait till it's over, right? And then it's over, and then you go back to what? And we just talked about what happens. Dieting, low metabolism, eat more food, weight regain, right? You cannot white knuckle a transformation. I promise you this. You cannot white knuckle it, because then you're just waiting for it to be over. I can't wait for the 8 weeks to be over. I can't wait for the 12 weeks to be over. Whew. Thank goodness, like this detox, I wanted to kill myself, but no, okay, right? That is not the way to go about it. The way to go about it is that like, that is who you become. You know what? You go out with the kids, like, hey, you have protein with every meal. You have this, that, and the other. 10, 15% of the time, you eat whatever you want. You like cookies, Twinkies, burgers, cool. Fit in that 15%. And then you're winning, and you're looking the way you want to, feeling the way you want to, performing the way you want to, confidence where you want it to be. And you don't have to do it white knuckling and being stressed out of your mind, okay? So, for everybody that is in the 6 week transformation challenge, everybody's getting added to the Facebook coaching group. Inside of there's gonna be a document that's gonna go over everything I went over, but in a step-by-step kind of process, okay? I'm in a group, all the coaches are in a group. Another friend of mine is also a high-level nutritionist, Alex McMahon, will be in a group. And like I said, that group is for you guys to be coached. Your training starts tomorrow. So you guys know the schedule. You have your 23 times a week that we have team training, which is our larger groups. And then we have 11 small group personal training sessions. And you pick and choose on which ones you go to, right? We recommend 2 and 2 or 2 and 3. What that means is 2 small group strength sessions and 2 to 3 group training sessions. Here's what I don't recommend you do. Go 6 to 7 days a week. All right, we get a lot of that. Hey, can I go 10 times? I mean, you can, but it's not gonna be good for you, right? It's too much. We have to match stimulus to recovery, and the body does very well when you progressively overload it. So if you go from nothing to like 100 miles an hour, it's gonna break really fast. So I'd rather see people do 2 and 1, 2 and 2, then build up to 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. But it starts tomorrow. Now we're gonna be doing, anybody that can do it today, do the in-body testing. Like I said, that's one of the most precise that we can do. I mean, it does body fat measurements, hydration levels. We actually get a lot of data and feedback to also see what we need to do with you guys. And we're doing one at the end. So we see a really, really clear picture also of the transformation. If you have any questions, I'm gonna stay for however long you guys have questions for me for. If you haven't signed up yet, there are still a couple of spots open that I think TJ and Tosh are still there in the front. TJ's right there. But like I said, if you have any questions and concerns or anything else, or you want to specifically talk to me about something that I talked about and are a little bit like, I'm not sure, but I want to find out, like I said, I'll hang around and answer as many questions as you guys need.